On the 11th of February, the South Carolina Supreme Court is going to hear Alex Murdaugh's appeal of his 2023 double murder conviction. Murdaugh was found guilty of killing his wife and son. And rather than hearing testimony, justices are going to review legal arguments. Tonight, though, News 19's Chrissy Calcagno is speaking with a USC media law expert about what this step means, how it differs from a trial, and while public attention, why it still matters.
Attention turns back to the Alex Murdaugh case, this time at the South Carolina Supreme Court. We're right now joined by USC media law expert Eric Robinson to be breaking down what this hearing really means, how it differs from a trial, and of course the role that media coverage plays in a high-profile case like this. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Now, this is a big one because when people hear, of course, Supreme Court hearing, they're thinking this is going to be a dramatic testimony. But what people may not realize is that there is no new testimony and no evidence, right?
No, it's just lawyers for each side. They each get about a half hour, and they argue in front of a bunch of judges. The oral argument is the most public part of a Supreme Court case, but much of the case is in paperwork that they've already submitted to the court, both sides, and sometimes third-party groups get involved if there's an issue that they care about. And they submit their papers to the court, and then the oral argument is really a chance for two things to happen. One, the lawyers to reiterate the arguments that they made in the paperwork, and for the judges to ask them questions based on what they've submitted. The hearing itself is not necessarily dramatic and theatrical, but the consequences could be. I mean, it's the Supreme Court, it's the highest court in the state, and so their decisions matter. Their decisions set precedents that then lower courts are obliged to follow.
How important is it for courts to kind of stay balanced with all of this media attention, and also the public weighing in on this?
This is more of a concern, frankly, at the lower court, at the trial court, where there are concerns about jurors being influenced by the presence of cameras and just the attention that it gets. Judges routinely tell jurors don't pay attention to the media coverage, that sort of thing. At the Supreme Court level, there's obviously going to be intense interest in this particular case, but the court, and they did it at the trial court too, will control how the media presence in the courtroom.
But could the court justices pay attention, though, to the media or the public reaction at all, or are they saying that they're not supposed to?
They're not supposed to.
Okay.
And the Supreme Court already live streams their arguments online. The cameras are recessed. They're in little cubbies and things like that. So you can't tell which camera is on. You can't tell where it's pointing. And it is actually a pretty good system.
What are some biggest misconceptions that we can clear up right now when it comes to viewers who are going to be watching this?
The court's role is not to determine whether he's guilty or not. The court's role is to determine whether the trial was fair, whether the trial court acted properly, those sorts of things. They're not going to decide that he's guilty or innocent. They are just deciding those procedural legal issues, which, if they find a problem, they will send it back to a trial court for a retrial in part or in whole, depending on what they find. It's an interesting case, and it's going to get a lot of attention.
A lot of attention.
Yes.
All righty, everyone, don't go anywhere. We're going to be putting this on our website later on today at WLTX.com.